Ladies and gentlemen, today I have a fistful of kumquats. I've reviewed kumquats in the past. When I was in Malaysia, I had a kumquat variety there. And then later on, I had a couple of hybrids of kumquats. But today, I've got 5 different varieties of kumquats. And these are mostly hybrids. So if you take a kumquat and cross it with another fruit, then you get a fruit that kind of has characteristics of both parents, which is really interesting. And these were sent to me by the Monterey Bay chapter of the California Rare Fruit Growers Organization. CRFG is a group that arranges events and also has resources for people who grow rare plants. So if you grow rare plants and are interested in learning a bit about this organization, I'll put some information down in the description below. So let me introduce you to my kumquats here today. We have the nagami kumquat. This is a regular kumquat, nothing hybridized about it as far as I know. And this one actually was not sent to me. I picked this one up at a supermarket to act as a control. There is another variety that sometimes you'll find. It's not oblong like this one, it is round. I believe those are called miwa kumquats. And when I reviewed kumquats in the past, I was reviewing one of those, I think. So this is actually a different one that I have not reviewed on the channel before, and this is the one you're most likely going to find if you go to a supermarket in most parts of the world. This is the fukushu kumquat, and this is a hybrid between a kumquat and also a mandarin. So if you crossbreed those together, you get one of these. Next, I have a limequat. A limequat is what you get when you cross a key lime with a kumquat. So that's pretty cool to see, and I've had these on the channel in the past, and these things are powerful, very powerful. I remember these being very sour. So first I'm going to just try the inside. Oh! Son of a... Next I have the indio Mandarinquat. And the indio Mandarinquat looks quite similar to the fukushu kumquat. And it should look similar because they both have similar parentage. They both have a cross between a mandarin and a kumquat. However, the mandarin in question are different mandarins. And this is the Nippon orangequat. Although it is called orangequat, this is not a cross between an orange and a kumquat, but it does look like a little orange, and I think that's where it gets that name. The parentage of this is a cross between a kumquat and a mandarin. However, this time it's the kumquat that is different. The kumquat that is used is a miwa kumquat. So because of that, it has a different shape. But because it has the mandarin in there, it's probably going to have a really nice flavor. So if you've never had a kumquat before, what's interesting about these is that you can take this entire citrus and eat it whole. You eat the rind and the flesh together. They still have seeds, usually, so you have to be careful about those. But the best flavor is it combined. And a bit of information that circulates around is that the rind on the outside is actually the sweet part, and the inside is sour. I'm not sure how true that is, though. When I had it in Asia, the whole thing was sweet. It wasn't very sour, but that was a different variety. So let's see if that's the case with this one. Yeah, the center is sour. And let me try the rind. The rind is sweet. So that is actually true. That is totally true. If, at least in the case of this particular kumquat, the regular supermarket kumquats are a sour fruit with a sweet rind around it. There's a really nice sweetness in that. Sweeter than an orange. I'd give it maybe a 7 out of 10. And there's a lot of sourness to it too, but not like overwhelmingly. I'd say altogether it feels like a 7 out of 10 on sourness. The flavor on a kumquat is really good. If you've never had it before, think like orange fruit, but also a bit of like orange zest. The most interesting thing about eating a kumquat, though, is that the flavor hits you in phases. So the first phase, the first thing you get is sour. You're hit by a rush of sourness. But then right after that, you start getting a bit of that rind taste, and you get sweetness. And at the very end, you get like a bit of a bitterness to it. Not as much bitterness that you get from eating like an orange rind, but a little bit. Next, I'm going to go with the Nippon Orangequat, because I think this one's going to be pretty sweet. The kumquat that this has in its parentage is a sweet kumquat all around. And I'm going to eat half of this, just so I don't like burn out my taste buds. Whew! That one's powerful too. The sweetness is less. I would give it a 5 out of 10 on sweetness. And the sourness, I'd say, is probably more. Instead of a 7, it's probably like an 8, or at least it feels like an 8. When you bite into it, you get a little bit of bitterness right at the front end. It's not just aftertaste. The nagami kumquat, I get mostly orange. But the orangequat, despite the name, you get orange and lemon. Like if you put that in like a cocktail, you know, sometimes people use it as a garnish or they'll like muddle one. It would be good for that. Candying that would be really good. It's got a good flavor, but it is more sour and more bitter, so it's gonna hit you a little harder. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. And I also want to try eating the pulp and the rind separately, so I'm going to try the pulp just on its own. You know, you get a little bit of sweetness, but you definitely get most of the sourness from the pulp. I'm getting a little bit more of the mandarin flavor, but like mandarin and lemon. The rind on its own. Yep, that is definitely where the sweetness on that kumquat is. It is in the rind, but so is the bitterness. Next, the fukushu kumquat. For this one, I'm actually going to have a fourth of it because it's so big. Let me kick a couple of these seeds out. This is fairly seedy. I'd say the sourness on that is around the sourness of an orange. So let's give it a 5. And the sweetness on it, also less. I'd say it's also the sweetness of an orange. The thing with the fukushu is that it is milder, so in a way it's easier to take. It's not so sour. But at the same time, it is as bitter, if not maybe a little bit more bitter. You can actually feel like the mandarin aspect to this. It's a little bit like taking a bite out of a slice of mandarin, but with some of the rind still on it. But let's see, I'm going to just try the inside of it. Yeah, inside is nice. Nice mandarin flavor, but with a little bit of sourness. So you're getting a little bit of like a little bit of lemon juice and a little bit of the kumquat flavor. So like a little bit of an orange flavor as well. And the inside on this is fairly sweet, so that's actually pretty nice. Try the rind. The rind is sweet too, but also kind of bitter. So I think for this one, for the fukushu, you might want to like eat just the inside. Eat it like a mandarin. I mean, they are very large, but the entire thing would be useful for cooking or making cocktails out of it and things like that. You're getting the cross between the kumquat and the mandarin, but with that comes the flavor of mandarin rind. Next, the indio Mandarinquat. And for this one, I'm going to eat just half of it. It's different than the fukushu Mandarinquat. It's maybe a little less sweet, but also a little less bitter, and also a little less sour. It's just milder, like all around. So in a way, that's good. It makes it a little bit easier to eat it out of hand, but also it's lacking some of the sweetness that a kumquat would have. So let me try the inside of the Indio Mandarinquat without the rind. Like an orange flavor, a touch of a mandarin flavor, and a touch of a lemon sort of flavor. Next I'll try just the rind. The bitterness is pretty close to a regular supermarket kumquat, maybe a little bit more. Sweetness is around the same. It's just that flavor is different. It's milder. You get a little bit of that mandarin flavor, and you get less sourness. So if you don't like sour things, that would be a good one. And that is one where you can eat the entire thing whole. And finally, the limequat. I saved this for the end because I know this one's going to be very intense. I've got about an eighth of one of those little fruits all together. Yeah, that one, I wouldn't eat those ones. I wouldn't pop them whole. But it's good. It's just, you don't want to like take a bite out of like a lemon wedge or lime wedge. And you don't want to take a bite out of a limequat wedge either. I'd say the sourness on that is a 10 at least. It's like the sourness of a lemon. The sweetness, I don't know. I'm gonna have to eat some more of it. I say it's sweeter than a lime, but it's really hard to tell how sweet that is just because it's so sour. That like overwhelms the sweetness. So it might be sweet and I just don't know it. So let me take a bite out of just the inside of this one. Straight up key lime. Just maybe like a hint of the kumquat flavor, but it's like 80% lime and maybe like 20% of like the kumquat orangish sort of flavor. But the rind, what about that rind? I'm just gonna eat a chunk of it, the flesh removed. You're getting the lime, but you're also getting a bit of like a candy lime sort of flavor. And the sweetness is almost like not sugar. It's like the sweetness of, I don't know, like almost like an artificial sweetener. There's like a different kind of sweetness that kind of hits you when you have that, almost like aspartame, but not artificial tasting. Just kind of feels a little different than sugar. And the bitterness is high. It's not as high as like a lime rind, but it is fairly high. It's higher than the other ones. There's also like this kind of like herbal flavor to it that it's kind of nice. It's not like hitting you over the head. Like sometimes lime rinds of different types of limes will taste kind of like a cough drop. This may be a little bit like that, but in a more manageable way. You know, I think this would actually be really good to mix with some seltzer or like in a drink or something like that. You know, kumquats are very popular in mixology. People like putting these into cocktails. And I think the limequat would be really good for that because you're also going to give like a little bit of a botanical sort of flavor. Like throw that into like a glass of gin or something that's going to have a little bit more of that kind of herbal flavor, and that would definitely add to it. So I think that definitely has a use, but it's not like a kumquat where you're going to pop that in your mouth. That would be a bad idea. So I think that's all I have to say about this bounty of kumquats that I have here. Out of all the ones here, I think that the regular supermarket one is probably the best one for just popping them, just like eating them whole. It kind of like tells a story when you're eating it. You get that sourness, you get that sweetness, you get that little tail end of bitterness, and it works really well for that. The other ones, they give you that, but with additional sorts of components. If you like kumquats and you want it to be more sour, the orangequat would be good, because then you're going to have that, but you're going to have a little bit more punch to it. The Mandarinquats are interesting because they have that mandarin flavor, and with that comes a little bit of an extra bitterness. this is better for preparing it in some sort of way. And the limequat, you would want to use that in similar applications that you would use a lime or a lemon. And because of how small it is, and because it's got like that sweetness in the rind, it has uses that you're not going to get from a regular lime. Very, very interesting to get a chance to try so many different varieties side by side. Thank you once again to the Monterey Bay chapter of CRFG. Again, I'll put some information about their organization in the description below if anyone watching is interested in learning more. Other than that, I will be back again in a future episode with even more citruses that were kindly sent to me by this group. So I'll see you then. I would like to give a shout out to Smarter Every Day, AltPod, and the Harbor Leaf Tea Company. They are mega patrons over on patreon.com. If you haven't heard of it, patreon.com it's how this channel happens. It's how I can afford to keep this YouTube channel going. So if you haven't checked it out, please take a moment to go into the description below and click the link there. I also have t-shirts for sale over at my web store. A link to that is in the description as well. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.